The government layoffs have officially begun. The Supreme Court got out of the way, and now thousands of people are losing their jobs. Some federal agencies have already announced this. But which ones are next, and how will it impact you? A reduction in force, or RIF, is a formal process federal agencies use to eliminate positions. It's not just to get people out of the agency, it's to completely dissolve that position, so no other person can hold that position again. But with a RIF, it is done based on factors. Things need to be taken under consideration. Things like seniority, tenure, performance, and veteran status. But this year, RIFs are not the normal cost-cutting procedure that you would typically see. The Trump administration wants to dramatically reduce the size of the federal workforce. And we've already seen over 100,000 people leave. Federal employees that took early retirement, deferred resignation program, or they took some sort of buyout, whether that be 25,000 or in some situations, it actually exceeded that. But 100,000 plus people, those are baby numbers. We need to pump those numbers up. And what recently occurred is the Supreme Court lifted the injunction of the lower courts. So now all of these layoff efforts can resume. A lot of them were paused. And there's 3 agencies that couldn't wait. They had their finger on the mouse waiting to click the send button. They were ready to send the RIF notices to their employees. And those 3 are the Education Department, the Department of Health and Human Services, and the State Department. First up is the Education Department. They have effectively laid off a third of their workforce. So that's about 1,400 people. Now, this action was suspended. It was paused. There was an issue that a federal judge had in Boston. He was worried that if you lay off so many people in this agency, they would not be able to do their congressionally mandated tasks. Tasks like special education, financial aid, and civil rights enforcement. The Supreme Court, in a 6-3 decision, allowed these layoffs to continue. Now, these individuals, these employees, they were placed on paid administrative leave until the legal stuff could sort itself out. So it's been 4 months since March. Hopefully, these individuals have started to do job searches to figure out their next step. Now, there was a lot of chatter in and around DC and on Reddit and everywhere else you can imagine. People did not believe the RIFs were going through. Every day I talk to somebody who was like, no way, man, they cannot be going through. They're not legal. You have to go through Congress. That's what a lot of people thought. That turns out to be false. So the layoffs are continuing. Now, the caveat is the merits of each reduction in force can still be legally reviewed and challenged, and a lot of them will. But the layoff train will continue to chug. Critics, including 21 Democratic attorneys general, argued this is an illegal attempt to dismantle the Education Department without congressional approval. A quick look on usajobs.gov, you will find 0 jobs for the Education Department. They probably will not be hiring anytime soon. Now, will the agency go away? Probably not, because you're still going to need Congress in order to completely erase the agency. And a lot of indications are Congress is not supporting of dissolving the Education Department. So what we're more likely to see is it'll be a shell, kind of like an empty shell until the next president takes office. Next, the Department of Health and Human Services, or HHS. HHS is saying that they finalized a portion of their layoffs. So what was originally targeted was 10,000 individuals. These people have already received RIF notices. Now they're receiving correspondence indicating that it's going to resume. They will be getting laid off. It's not just these 10,000. The agency also lost another 10,000, but that was due to incentives. So what we're seeing here today is we're witnessing 25% of HHS go away, disappear. Once again, what has allowed this? The Supreme Court ruling is what has allowed it. One FDA employee, a disabled veteran, said they were fired despite their service and qualifications. They also mentioned the point that a lot of data that was used in order to identify who would receive a layoff notice, that data was inaccurate, it was incorrect. The agency understood it, still used the data, so people that had outstanding performance evaluations, they were being told otherwise. No, you don't. Actually, you're a mediocre employee. You might not have realized it up until this point, but you're mediocre and we're getting rid of you. Caused a lot of confusion, caused a lot of resentment. Another employee said they don't even know who they fired. These workers are now cut off from HR systems with no clear information on severance. The union is now gearing up for a legal battle. And there's been a lot of legal battles, but when you go through the MSPB, when you go and try to file an appeal, good luck. Because right now, on average, there's over 400 appeals per week. And if you want to have an idea on what normal looks like, last year, on average, there was about 90 a week. So we have seen a dramatic increase in the appeals. Then there's the State Department, where over 1,300 employees were laid off, 1,000 civil servants, and over 240 foreign service officers. This is part of a broader reorganization plan. What we're going to end up seeing is over 3,000 jobs ultimately be gone, reducing the agency by 15%. The cuts are going to hit offices like the Bureau of Cyberspace and Digital Policy. This is where experts in AI and quantum computing have been let go. That's a desirable skill set. I don't know if you realize that or not. I don't know if the government has realized it, but artificial intelligence and quantum computing, that's legitimately some talent that you would want to retain. Maybe not in the Department of State, right? That's fine. But wouldn't it have been nice to see these individuals go to, let's say, I don't know, Department of Defense or Department of Homeland Security? We're always hearing about how bad the Department of Defense needs cybersecurity talent or IT specialist over there. This was a great opportunity to keep the talent within the federal workforce, because what ends up happening over in DoD, they have to pay incentives to attract people, and then a lot of times the attrition erodes a good chunk of the people that they attracted. One civil servant with 19 years of service called the process abrupt, unreasonable, and unlawful. The State Department insists that these cuts, they're targeting non-core functions. But you had an ex-CIA director, he weighed in on the situation and said, hey, listen, is this really the time to be gutting the foreign service when you have international tensions with Ukraine, Israel, Iran? Maybe it's not the best time. It weakens U.S. diplomacy when it's needed most. Employees at the State Department, they were reporting chaos as well. They were saying that RIF notices went out and then they were rescinded. And we've been seeing that a lot in different agencies. And then people who thought they were safe, they weren't really safe, unfortunately. So another thing that was kind of surprising at the State Department is they're cutting these foreign service officers, but the position's not going away, because even as they fire 250 of them, they're still looking to hire this September. So in this sense, they're not necessarily getting rid of a position. They're really getting rid of the people in the position. The position remains. At least that's what it looks like to me. The Supreme Court's rulings favor Trump for now. I think it's key to understand that this Supreme Court ruling is not a complete victory. It does allow the layoffs to continue. People will be losing their jobs, but federal judges will still be reviewing it as it goes through. And if there's any violation of federal law, you could see layoffs being reversed or paused once again. So which federal agency do we think is next on the chopping block? Well, we've got a lot of hints. We've got a lot of data and trends. Number one, I think, is the Environmental Protection Agency. This federal agency is like a punching bag to this administration. And we heard back in April that EPA's Office of Environmental Justice and Regional Environmental Justice Divisions, they were slated for RIFs effective July 31st. So it seems reasonable that we're going to hear something coming from the EPA soon. Next could be the Department of Defense. A memo earlier this year revealed a plan to cut 5 to 8% of its workforce, up to 61,000 jobs. These cuts are targeting non-mission critical jobs. And the only thing that was holding them up really was the Supreme Court. Now that they have a green light, it could continue. But a question with this is, what about attrition? Attrition each and every month chips away at federal agencies. More and more people are leaving. What about early retirement, the deferred resignation program? So many people have left. Is there really still a need to do a reduction in force? We saw the VA decide not to do a reduction in force. because they had already lost sufficient amount of people. It was like 30,000. They were planning for 80,000. 30,000 ended up leaving within 6 months or so. So that's fine for them. The DOD, on the other hand, what are they going to do? It's my belief, it's highly probable that we'll see at least something. Maybe not 60,000, maybe 20,000, maybe around the 25,000 mark. But you might see something that shows Pete Hegseth is on the same page as President Trump. Another two agencies to look out for is GSA and the IRS, the General Services Administration and the Internal Revenue Service. This is because those two agencies were singled out by name when it came time for the hiring freeze. Not the last one, but the second hiring freeze. So we're on the third hiring freeze. But the second one, they mentioned GSA and IRS would not be hiring throughout the calendar year. So I would not be too surprised to hear something coming from those agencies as well. Now, a few days ago, I was having lunch with a senior executive that I know. And this individual, he had a theory, right? Basically, his theory was when it comes to layoffs, what agencies are going to be hit the hardest? And he was saying a lot of people were talking about agencies that had a higher percentage of women and or minorities. And I was thinking, what agencies are those? First off, that's his idea. It's not my idea. He was sharing the idea. I'm sharing it with you right now. But I was thinking, what agencies are those that have the majority women and or minorities? So I was doing a little research, I was doing a little digging, and these are the top 5 federal agencies that have a high percentage of women and minorities. Number 1 is the VA. Number 2, Department of Education. 3 is Health and Human Services. 4 is HUD. And 5 is the Department of Treasury. In those 5 agencies, women are typically over 60% of the workforce, and minorities are over 50%. And interestingly enough, these are some of the main agencies that have announced layoffs. Now, it could be a coincidence. In addition to that, we had a new report come out from OIG about telework, about remote work, about what really happened during the telework era. Let's call it that, like during the pandemic years. Now, the report is largely negative, and I disagree with it. But if you want to know more about that and the future of teleworking in the federal government, then check this video out next. Stay updated by signing up to the free newsletter down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.